Hello, nerds, and welcome. We are Crossing the Nerdverse, bringing you yet another episode. My name is Travis. I'm joined, as always, by my fantastic co-hosts, Eric and Ryan. We are in our first week outside of the spooky wookie month of October. I hope everyone had a happy Halloween. But in keeping with our theme of horror, we're going to reach out into the grim dark of the far future. And I'm, of course, talking about Warhammer 40k. We're going to be covering orcs.
Yeah, everybody's been doing Space Marines. Everybody and their dog is covering the Space Marine chapters and the Horus Heresy.
Yeah.
And so tonight is going to be for all of you people out there that don't care about Space Marines but really want to look at some of the other factions in the game.
Orcs are just super fun. They're one of
Dude,
my most,
it's
most
such a
entertaining
wild story.
groups.
Like, not only are they super entertaining, they have some of the most interesting models and sculpts out there. They have some of the coolest backstory out there. I'm so excited to cover. But first, let's go ahead and open with current events.
I'm going to lead us off and talk a little bit about the release of Dragon Age Veilguard, which started on, of course, Halloween Day, dropped on the 31st. Been playing it for the past week or so, and it's been entertaining. I'm sufficiently gruntled, to use a big word. Yeah, it's been fine, mechanically sound, a little oversimplified on some of the aspects, which is not always a bad thing. I do like having a little more complex variety, but
you were a big fan of the previous games, right?
Yeah, huge fan of all of them. I mean, from Origins on up, I have played every iteration of that game, every release, every expansion. I have read extensively into the lore and all that fun stuff. You know, I played Origins 5 or 6 times. I played Dragon Age 2 4 or 5 times. I played Inquisition 2 or 3 times. Probably going to get a couple of playthroughs on Veilguard, if I'm being honest, just to see what the other classes and builds and stuff are like. But it's been, like I said, it's been fine. It's not blowing me away. I wouldn't bite into the huge review bombing that it's experiencing. But overall, decent game. I'd give it a 6.5, 7 out of 10. You know, like I said, it's not blowing me away. But it's not, it's not lived up to every single expectation I have for a game. But again, it's complete. It's mechanically sound. The story's fine. The voice acting is actually very good. I've seen some people complaining about it. I think the voice acting's fine. So.
Well, and I also got into the Dragon Age games. I spent more time in Inquisition than any of the other ones. I'm just going to be honest about that. Absolutely loved Inquisition. And the only reason,
definitely the most expansive.
Yeah,
like it's the biggest game.
Well, the only reason I really picked up Dragon Age at the time when the first one started coming out and stuff is because I was such a huge Mass Effect fan.
I thought it was because I harassed you about it.
Well, I mean that is true, but I was a huge Mass Effect fan, and this game very much plays like a medieval Mass Effect, right? It's got kind of the same vibe in almost every one of the games. It's got that grand overarching story. What I like about Dragon Age is each of their games covers a little bit different flavor of conflict within the world they've created, right? And I think Veilguard, from what I've seen, I've not had the privilege of playing it yet. That's why I'm not weighing in with like a bunch of opinions. What I've seen so far, it's a beautiful game. I think it's extremely well created. It's got great graphics, textures, the whole 9 yards. It does seem a little bit simple, and that appears to be the major complaint of most people, is that the gameplay and the actual crunchy mechanics of the game have been dialed back, especially compared to like Inquisition and the games previous. And so, but I think it looks really good, and most importantly, kind of like you were saying, it's complete. It's a whole gaming experience. We're not having to buy episode 1 of it for full price so that we can buy episode 2 of it in February. And so,
I haven't run into, and there's some bug reports that have gone up. I haven't ran into any of them, thankfully. Like a little knock on wood, but I feel like all in all, decent game. I'm not blown away by it by any means, but again, fundamentally sound game. I'm pleased. I know some people won't be, but
I mean, the biggest thing is when the gripes are like the game isn't life altering enough. Like that's a solid game, dude.
Oh yeah, like that's the biggest complaint.
Yeah, like when you read the reviews that are coming out on it, like they're stretching to find things wrong with it.
Yeah,
to me that's a good game. Like that. So I would definitely
get nitpicky.
Now I'm not gonna buy it until it goes on sale. Won't lie about that. I haven't heard enough good things to buy it at full price for myself. I mean, everybody's different. Some people love the story and they'll do it. That's fine. But I will personally be waiting just because I have Baldur's Gate 3. A lot of people said it's a great it's everything I read was good game. Probably not $70 game,
Yeah.
but still good game. So I'll wait it out just a little bit.
Like I said,
Well,
I'm pleased with it. I don't think it's a shoo-in for game of the year. I think very easily could win some voice acting awards. Again, it's got the same guy that's played Varric for the past, I guess, 3 games in a row now. He is back doing the voice of Varric.
Minor spoiler alert, I guess.
I mean, if you didn't already hear him in the trailer, they did bring back probably one of my favorite things from the Dragon Age that is carried over from every game. And that's where they go to that like tapestry style storytelling board.
Yeah.
I love that. I don't know what it is about that transition, but I love it every time I see it.
I absolutely agree. I think that's one of the best parts. One of the most appealing like visuals I've seen for a while. For those of you that are interested, our criteria for what we look for in our games and for new games and what makes us say a game is good or bad was all covered in a previous episode of Crossing the Nerdverse. Much of our opinions were commented on by our viewers, and that's something I'm going to encourage all of you to do. As we continue tonight, we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And if you have opinions or you want us to cover particular topics or examine games from a particular angle, go ahead and give us a comment on Facebook, on YouTube, anywhere that you're actually listening to this podcast. Give us a like, give us a share. All that interaction helps with that algorithm stuff. And more importantly, lets us know what you want to hear. So, but yeah, I think Veilguard. I think Veilguard's solid. I think you pretty much covered it well. And I would say I feel comfortable picking that one up.
What you got, Eric?
All right, so the next thing we're gonna go over real quick, NFT. Everybody heard about
Ubisoft.
it during COVID for a long time. It is actually a really cool idea. It's not just some bullshit. If you look into how NFTs work in general, they are probably going to eventually be the future. There's a lot of smart people that think the same thing. So we'll have to wait and see. But anyways, Ubisoft has done its own game, blockchain game.
Yeah.
Champions Tactics, which is legitimately a pay-to-win game.
Yeah.
That's just straight up right out of the gate.
I wonder if it's gonna do better than Ubisoft Quartz, which only sold 15.
Well, here's the thing. Eric is right. I know that NFTs and everything in that realm has been very much painted in media and in our modern culture as kind of a scam. You always hear about like the only people that talk about NFTs are kind of the meathead, jock best friends that are trying to get rich quick. There is something to an NFT, but I'm going to be honest with you, I don't put any value on it. I don't think it's going to be the future. There are a bunch of very intelligent people that say it's going to be, but I don't think so. And so when I started walking up to Ubisoft's NFT-based card game, I already had a really bad taste in my mouth. So I'm just going to preface that I'm not coming at it with an entirely open mind here, and everything I'm reading about it does not help.
It is not doing well. Probably my favorite Reddit comment I've seen on it was like, Ubisoft finds perfect formula for losing money.
Yeah, no doubt.
I think they're too late on an NFT thing.
Yeah, there's no way. Well, but here's the thing. What started us off this quest is our fellow co-host, Jimmy Bones. He sent us some information about it where Ubisoft released an NFT-based game. It is 100% pay to win. You just put your money in and get the best stuff, and you get to win games. And the best cards?
Well, I think they're figures.
Yes,
I believe so.
Is already being sold for $63,000. $63 grand.
There's one as of 3 days ago. I'm looking at PC Gamer. So this was published on November 4th. As they were writing it, the most expensive purchase you can make from the Champions Tactics marketplace was listed at $256,570,000.
What? That's
Well, you
So,
can
yeah.
you could technically list your stuff or whatever, but I mean, I do.
Yeah, I mean that's from the marketplace. That's somebody selling a
Yeah.
champion. But
Whether or not they'll get that kind of money, I doubt it. But I do think it's a great idea because NFTs are kind of like the new way to do contracts and things like that. There's
I don't know, man. It seems like a greedy excuse to me.
I mean, you have to
Yeah, I
get
think
it, and it's got to be worth it. Like, there's different ways. Like, you can't like NFTs will be good once the right type of people get into them a lot more. I think, but the game seems interesting just in the sense of you can make your own NFT, and you can definitely do some stuff with it. I mean, if it gets good, you could sell your own NFT for something. You got to be. Oh, let me preface all of this with you have to be. I think you have to be 18 plus to do any of this because of everything with it. Yeah, 18 plus. Because they have not put it into ESRB for a rating. Ubisoft did not submit Champion Tactics for a rating, and that the adult only 18 plus rating icon in the original trailer was included in error. Excuse me. But you do need to be 18 plus because you have to register on their website. I'm getting all of my info from IGN, just in case anybody wants to know. Article written by Rebecca Valentine.
Well, and here's the thing. I don't want to get too deep into
anywhere.
the nature of the NFT industry in and of itself in this episode, right? So here's what I am going to say. With Champions Tactics, Grimoria Chronicles, and the use of NFT-based characters, and moving to an already immediately wild marketplace with champions ranging from $7 to 25 grand to 335 grand to apparently millions of some psychotic person on the marketplace. All this shows me is that it's a gacha game, just like Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes or any of them. I think there's a Marvel one. I think I played the Marvel one for years and I cannot remember its name right now.
Strike Force?
Yes, Marvel Strike Force, thank you.
Here for the people.
And so it's a gacha game where they get to plug into their computer with zero effort to create a unique champion, the same as every other game does, and then get you to buy it for the cost of a house. And there's nothing good about that sentence. Like, there is nothing good coming out of this. And I'm going to be the first one. I'll take the opposite standpoints. Even those of our listeners that have enough money to get in on this, please do not. This is
it's
not
your money.
good.
You live.
Stay away from this.
No, you should definitely do it with your money.
Like Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
Live.
Yeah.
So anyway, that covers the recent Ubisoft money grab and NFT-based champion game. That's fun.
Money grab. So just real quick on some previous episodes, Glitch brought up 1718, because we were talking about Predator, like Prey and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So he brought it up in regards to he wished they would have done a movie about that. I guess it was a really good short Predator comic way back when. And it's just something he would have liked to have seen done. What else? There was one more. Zab can fly. There we go.
Okay.
So he was talking zombies with me. He liked The Last of Us.
Solid.
Those ones, and also Left 4 Dead, The Witches and Bloaters.
So that's actually an interesting take on zombie films, because between those two, you have extraordinary zombies, right?
Wasn't Left 4 Dead a game?
Yeah, Left 4 Dead was a game.
And a TV show.
But a TV show.
We put a call out in regards to like zombies, like toughest zombies and stuff like that in that episode. So yeah, he was throwing out there just like some zombies he considered rather tough.
Well, and if you haven't watched the Last of Us television show, Travis, you really, really should go check it out. It's fantastic. The use of the cordyceps style zombies with the fungal infection.
I've seen The Last of Us. I was talking about Left 4 Dead.
No, Left 4 Dead is just a game.
Yeah. I was like, Left 4 Dead was straight up a game. I know Last of Us is also a TV show. Got Pedro Pascal in it. Of course, I watched it.
Pedro Pascal, everything.
Grumpy Dad escorts Magic Child.
Glad. Yeah, I'm glad he's in everything. Honestly,
Yeah, I
Pedro
absolutely love that.
Pedro Pascal was also a absolute stud on Saturday Night Live, where he does the thing where he wakes up out of the coma. If you haven't seen that clip, go watch it. Totally amazing.
We got a call out from Roaming Crow over on YouTube saying that the Left 4 Dead are technically infected and not zombies. That is true. They're actually, and they're
Which
purposely infected. They were science experiments. So.
Wouldn't that also be the same for?
Most zombies, I think.
Well, and
yeah, like
bear in mind
that would
that's
be the same for like Resident Evil. That would be the same
Yeah.
for World War Z.
technically speaking, that's correct. Now, when we put out our call for zombies, obviously we were speaking in much more umbrella terms, where it's like I don't want to get
Umbrella.
Nice.
nice. You know, I don't want to get too specific on like what exactly makes a zombie versus something else. Because then we get into weird grounds like the I Am Legend movie with Will Smith.
Oh, I loved that movie.
They're making
It
a
was good.
sequel.
Dude, you should check
Good.
out the book because the book is an entirely different experience. Highly recommend the book.
All right, so let's get on some orc stuff though.
Yeah,
I like
40K
Warhammer.
orcs.
I need to learn more. I'm
Here
not
we
very
go.
smart.
Alright.
Here we go. Here we
Here
go.
we go.
Here we go.
We got a whole stream full of DACA for the lads. All right, so I'm just going to open us up with this statement, and it's going to make everybody immediately either cheer for joy or try to fight me, and either way is good for an orc episode. What you need to know first and foremost about the orcs is that they are a perfect organism.
Uh-huh.
They are flawless.
They also
they
have the
are-
most stable economy in the 40K universe,
This is a fact.
based
so
on teeth.
the orcs in 40K, let's start with the simplest, broadest strokes. The orcs in the 40K universe are one of the oldest species in the entire game's history, with the exception of obviously the Necrontyr, which eventually became the Necrons, and the reptilian space angels called the Old Ones, which, for anybody that used to pay attention back in the day, is just the lizard folk from fantasy.
I thought the Eldar were of
No, the Eldar were
equivalent age.
No, they're younger by a significant margin than the old ones. Now, the Eldar were around during the
No,
War
not
in
the
Heaven.
old ones. The orcs.
Oh, so they're much more similar to the orcs' age, but again, the orcs were created before the Eldar actually rose to a technological advancement to be considered a civilization. And so, as a species, yeah, they're probably older, but on a scale of dealing with between 63 and 163 million years, being older by a few thousand years is not gonna
Really
get
not
you a
gonna be the
whole lot.
difference maker.
Yeah. And more importantly, in order to understand why the orcs are the way they are and what they do, you have to understand the War in Heaven. So let's start with War in Heaven in very, very brief, because that's enough of an episode by itself.
That was the old ones versus the Catan / Necrontyr.
/ Necrontyr. So yeah,
Which all started because the old ones wouldn't help the Necrontyr survive radiation poisoning from their dying star.
Yep, that's fact.
That's pretty much why the whole thing was started. The Necrons made a deal with the Catan. The Catan stole their souls, put them in little robot bodies. That's how you got the Necrons. They were putting the whoop on the old ones, so the old ones created the probably most entertaining fungus that's ever existed. Because orcs, sorry, not orcs then, they were Krorks.
Krorks, yeah.
Way more dangerous than modern orcs. Which is going to get to my fan theory at the end of this episode, and I hope you're excited.
Well, and the orcs, as we go into this, guys, the orcs are a central pillar in storytelling in 40K all the way through it. They have shaped the galaxy into what it is.
It's because they believe it is the way that it is.
Yeah. So the orcs themselves, let's cover with why they were created. They were created to be a foot soldier army and a galaxy-spanning army by the old ones, and they were imbued self-replicating. They were imbued with several abilities, I guess, by the old ones in the way that they were created in order to make them an effective force. First and foremost is that the orcs in 40K, and now all orcs ever in my head, are fungus. They're mushrooms. When they die,
which means
their
they
blood,
reproduce via spore.
Yeah, their blood, their body, everything turns into spore and spreads out. And when one orc dies, 150 more crop back up.
We have to make the addendum. They also sometimes, when they get very, very excited, will just release spores into the atmosphere.
Yep. Anytime they spit, sweat, or get really worked up, spores. So that's
they're like I said, they're the coolest fungus that's ever existed.
It's so much fun, and the artwork that we used to get in the older 40K stuff that shows an orc gestation, right? Where it's like, okay, we have a rock and a little shady spot, and here's a few like, capped mushrooms, and those roots go down to this bulbous network of all of these orcs growing out of the roots underneath the ground. And it's absolutely terrifying for being as hilarious as it is.
Yeah, I think now they have it set up in the lore where they come out as like grots.
So it's a
then, like,
weird. Again, I guess I should
Eventually
have
that
started
turns
this off
into a
the same
knob,
as-
and then the knob
yeah.
becomes an orc or something like that. That
I'm gonna-
hardly matters.
We're just going to preface it the same way we always do with every 40K lore episode in saying that 40K lore is contradictory by its very nature. You cannot trust the narrators in 40K. And so we're just going to tell you what we have learned and what corroborates the best.
Yeah.
So, fungus orcs. So that's ability number 1. Ability number 2, and I'm going to save the best for last. So ability number 2, the orcs were created with genetic memory. And within that genetic memory is how to build and design and craft and do everything they need to do to be orcs. This goes all the way into advanced engineering, how to create spaceships and weapons, how to navigate, how the universe works.
Spaceships.
Yeah, spaceships. But they have that from the time they're born. They do not have an emotional development period. They are born with all of the knowledge and personality they will ever have. And then the longer they stay alive, the bigger and meaner and orkier that they get.
Not only alive, but every time they fight.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be like a hard fight or anything. It just needs to be a good fight. And every fight to an orc is a good fight. So like if they get in a scrap with their buddy, after they're victorious, they just like up like an inch instantly because it was a good fight.
Because
So
it was a
they're
good
like
fight.
Saiyans.
No, not even
like-
remotely. Saiyans have to work way harder to get bigger.
Well, and Saiyans are temporary. They have to like move into new forms. Orcs just stay that way.
Yeah,
And
orcs
so-
just get bigger and then stay
Imagine
that
a Saiyan that didn't have to work as hard to reach Super Saiyan, and then when it reached Super Saiyan, it just stays that way. That's the new basic.
Yeah,
And then
this is
Super Saiyan
baseline.
2 and 3. And so the longer they stay alive, the bigger and meaner and tougher they get. They also can, on a certain level, adapt to their situation and exist in nearly every environment. No problem. They have no susceptibility to disease. There's a lot of evidence showing they don't even have to eat or drink. Which goes back into the whole fungus aspect of their lives. And so bear all that in mind when I explain, well, now you're asking, how can an orc not need to eat? Why can they just get bigger? How come do they just get to know all this stuff? Which leads us to their
40K.
most potent ability that they have. The least understood, most game-breaking aspect of orcs ever, and that is called the Gestalt Mind.
Yes.
Effectively, the short of it is if you have enough orcs that all believe the same thing, reality will change to make it true. And
Yep.
so if you have enough orcs that believe, let's use a particular example. If you have enough orcs that believe that the color red is faster than the other colors, reality changes to make that true.
Yeah, so when you paint a vehicle red, it goes faster.
It goes faster.
Yeah. Yellow explodes bigger.
If black and white checker are tougher or unkillable, depending on who you listen to. Thanks, Horace. Big preach on that one.
My absolute favorite is purple is sneaky.
Purple sneaky,
Because
you
have
never
you
see
ever
a
seen
purple
a
orc.
purple orc? That is and that's exactly what the orcs say. Ever seen a purple orc? No, because they're so sneaky.
Yeah. So
What the
let's paint that
fuck?
picture right now.
Yeah,
You have
dude. The
this-
orcs are wild.
The orcs are nuts, man. You have this wild, eldritch, cosmic war in heaven waged by these impossible to understand, again, eldritch entities who created a species of fungal demon warriors.
You
that
also
now,
have to. You also have to note that the Krorks, which is what was the original creation, were larger, and I hate saying this, more intelligent than modern 40k orcs. The most
Again,
dominant,
adapting to their situation.
widespread, I won't say most dangerous, but definitely one of the most dangerous species in existence in 40k, is the dumbed down version of what they used to be.
Yeah.
Krorks were just a huge step above where modern orcs are.
and when I say that, for all of you fans out there that are beginning to dip your toe into 40k lore, because of Space Marine 2, everybody understands what a Space Marine is, who the Imperial Guard are, what the Tyranids are, and has a brief understanding of chaos, right? when I tell you that the orcs are the most successful, the most prolific alien species in the Milky Way galaxy, I want you to compare that to things like the Tyranid, who are known as a tidal wave of swarming biomass. The orcs just outdo them in that. They cover this galaxy, well, like a fungus. And so
there's a lot more of them, right, than anything else. Like, there's more orc-controlled planets than anything.
So orcs don't control planets. That's not what they do. There are technically orc-controlled planets. It's just planets that orcs still happen to be on. They are highly nomadic and will drift through the galaxy, always looking for the next fight. And when one orc comes out and starts a Gestalt mind, it starts to gather orcs around him that will rally around their army being bigger and bigger and bigger. They will radiate out, and the most recognizable orc uprising thing ever is an orc wah. Which, for everybody that's listening, it's just the orcs saying war in a bad accent. Just so you're aware.
Hold on, I have to be holding a weapon. Let me grab my lightsaber.
Yeah.
Give me just a second.
So when orcs gather together looking for a good scrap, they'll create a Waaagh. Whoever's in charge of the Waaagh becomes the Orc War Master. They get bigger and
not a War Master.
The War Boss.
That's right. It's the boss.
It's the War Boss. And he gets fed all of the Gestalt goodness from his entire warband.
Which makes him bigger.
Which makes him bigger and meaner and scarier.
And
Think
more
of this,
orc.
for those Destiny fans out there, anybody that plays the Destiny, it's kind of a tithing system, the same way the Hive work in Destiny. It's a bad pyramid scheme, so the War Boss gets a portion of all of the Gestalt energy from everybody that serves underneath him. And so the bigger the Waaagh, the more powerful everybody in the Waaagh gets, but in particular, the War Boss, because he's on the top. And he needs to be bigger and stronger than everybody else to keep it going.
And
here's the thing. As we get into Waaghs, and we're going to quickly get into the actual history of orcs and our favorite moments in orcs, something you have to understand is that the orcs don't need to worry about nearly as much stuff as anybody else. They don't care.
They have the most stable economy in 40K. And it's based on teeth.
They don't need to understand how or why things are the way they are. They just have to believe it, and it works that way. And so as we get into some of the stories that are most well known about the orcs, bear in mind that they will take absolutely cosmic level incidents, and they just saw it as a convenient way to get something done. So obviously orcs have now spread out throughout the galaxy. They are a dumbed down version of their older self. Yep. There's lots of beliefs to that. The most widely accepted is that somewhere down the line an orc was told he was dumb or ugly, believed it, everybody else believed it, and the orcs kind of dumbed themselves down using their own ability.
I think there's also some lore out there in regards to the Eldar and Eldari basically poisoning the Krorks every time they came across them, and then intentionally keeping their entire species in check. They would go and make sure that none of them were clustered up too many at a time. And what this led to was a lot of competition over resources between the orcs, and it wasn't always necessarily the smartest orc that survived, but it was definitely the strongest. And
yep.
Yeah, now, you have this deviation from tactics and into just straight barbarism, but
I have some holdups on the regards of giving the Eldar more credit than they're worth. I think some of that might actually be propaganda. But ultimately, it doesn't matter because the orcs don't care. And so reality doesn't care. Now the orcs are the way that they are.
They're probably also one of the happiest groups out there.
That's actually a fact. They don't. This is not a grimdark future to them. This is on the border of being a utopia. They have everything that they'll ever need. And they love it here. Yes, Eric.
So the orcs are the good guys.
No.
So no, and we're going to get into why.
They're just having a good time.
Being unburdened by morals does not make you a good guy.
No. It makes you immune from being bad by your own perspective as well.
So if they don't think they're evil, though, are they evil?
They don't think in terms of good or evil. They think in
there's
terms
no
of the
moral
next fight.
understanding.
It's
See?
just
Good guy.
the next fight. That's
But
not...
that's kind of like saying that the Tyranid are just dumb animals, which they are, and so because they're just hunting, that makes them the good guys. No, a rock falls off a cliff and kills you, it doesn't make it a hero. It's just a rock. Um, so we got a couple of things coming through. Nothing about Warhammer.
I mean, speaking of that, is how orcs travel. Is
Yeah,
via
that is
rock.
exactly how orcs travel. So let's go ahead
But
and cover orc technology as our next section, right? What makes them dangerous? We know they're big, we know they're strong, we know they're extremely tough, and they don't require a lot to survive. But how do they stand up against modern technology? Well, they copy it.
Really well.
They don't need to
Really,
understand
really
how
well.
it works. And
Nope.
so it is much to the chagrin of the Tau, the Imperium, and the Eldar. An orc will scrap together a general plane-shaped device and put an engine on it. It doesn't even matter what that engine originally did or how much power it has. Because they believe it'll fly, it does. Because they believe their guns will shoot when they pull the trigger, it does. Yes.
One of the best examples I ever heard was from a YouTube channel that does nothing but Warhammer 40k lore. It's Islander and Coda. If you guys want to really like super deep dive into Warhammer, those guys are great. But he described it as an orc will go into a Walmart, get 6 Nerf guns, tape them together with duct tape, pull the trigger, and a real bullet comes out. That's how
exactly
orc technology works.
Yeah. Because it's gun-shaped, it's obviously a gun.
Yeah.
And so that covers basically all of their technology. In fact, the first time the orcs started fighting
Yes,
Space
Eric?
Marines, he's excited
All
about
the
something.
different things that you could do by your
Oh, yeah.
imagination just working, you could
Yeah.
completely avoid having to use. Anyways, I'm not going to get into that.
But
Let's
that's
continue
why
on.
the orcs are so popular. They're funny, they're raucous, and ultimately you can convert and do whatever you want to with your orc army because it doesn't need to make sense.
No. And they have the best names for stuff.
Yeah.
The Wazbama.
The Wazbama, dude. So they call the
with two
gods
Ks.
that created them, the big eldritch entities that created them. The orcs are aware of them. They call them the Brain Boys because they made the orcs, and the orcs are the best.
But that's who created them.
Yeah.
But it's not their gods.
Oh, good. We're gonna talk about Gork and Mork. Okay.
Their gods are
Mork and
Gork and
Mindy.
Mork. No, it's Gork and Mork.
Well,
Yeah.
No, Gork
Mork and Gork.
is cruel and
No, brutal.
cunning.
Brutal but cunning.
Oh, brutal but cunning. Mork is cunning but brutal.
Yeah. And this is the entire
They're
philosophy
different.
for orc religion and culture.
Yeah.
You're either brutal but cunning. Now, this generally translates to orcs that don't try to think too hard and will just hit an object hard enough until it breaks. Or you're cunning but brutal, and that's orcs that like sneak or use commandos or have some kind of tactic. Both are the same.
They've had 2 prophets that were in fact touched by the warp.
Yeah.
In the history of 40k. The
Yeah,
first one is the Beast.
Oh man, yeah, we got a whole thing. If
That
our
would be its
listeners
own individual
if our
episode,
listeners
is the
want to
War
know
of the
more
Beast.
about the Beast and the War of the Beast in that was what, M38,
Yeah.
let us know and we will cover the Beast.
That was pre-heresy.
Yeah.
Ooh, I haven't read anything before the Heresy. Love the
Yeah.
Heresy though, by the way. Great. I'm still on False Gods. Great books.
Yeah.
So here's the quick question, since we do a lot with the game itself, not just the lore of this. So if orcs are so amazing, how do their abilities work in the game?
So
Because
here's how it works.
I could just make all my orcs believe something to win.
Yeah, but here's the thing. It works both ways. Because you're orcs as a culture, you have to have enough of them to do it, right? It works both ways. And that's where we start getting things like the black and white checker pattern that we see on a lot of orc vehicles and armor. They got that pattern because they fought Horus. And Horus was basically unkillable. And they thought it was the color of his armor that made it that way. And so when they believe something is bad for them, it becomes bad for them. If something is unkillable, it becomes unkillable. And their own Gestalt mind will work against them in that regard. Now, how does that translate to mechanics in the game? On the tabletop, the orcs work in 2 different ways. First way is that they are accuracy by volume kind of army. They are absolute shit shots with every gun, but they will attack you.
Better.
They will attack you 50 times, and so you might need to roll 6s. But if you make 50 attacks with one guy, a few of them are going to come up 6s. One of my favorite things is that they used to have a stratagem in an older edition of the game called long uncontrolled bursts that made them better at shooting. And so you have that aspect. The next aspect, and where you get to use the Orc Gestalt mind, really is using what they call the Weird Boys, and the Wah itself. You can trigger the Wah effect on the game board to give your army a army-wide bonus. At least you could in the older editions. I haven't looked into the modern edition with orcs just yet. Big shout out to Rob, who is our local orc player. I hope he's listening. But their Weird Boys get to access the warp in a way that doesn't quite match up with any other psyker ever. And they get to just make stuff happen. They used to have a psychic power called De-Jump, and that's where you could take nearly your entire army off the board and then redeploy it anywhere else on the board that you wanted them to be. Because they believed they should be over there. And so they were.
Yeah. Which was great to just counterplace.
Additionally, a lot of the orc technology is imagined into existence, so to speak, by looking at other people's technology. So they get limited by the reality they deal with. The first time the orcs fought Space Marines, they saw a Space Marine Dreadnought. They thought, that was a super cool idea. We should do that with our guys, too. And out came the Killer Can. Oh, excuse me, the Killa Can, which is a barrel with an orc inside of it with as many guns strapped onto it as they can. And it walks around and shoots at people.
It also has rockets.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then the Imperium unleashed the greatest weapons. They have the God War machines, the Titans, on the orcs. And the orcs thought that was a super cool idea. And out came, what are they called? The Stompas? Which is...
No, the Mech Dread.
Well, I mean, you have the Mech Dread, but that was just kind of a middle ground. But you get the Stompa, and the Stompa is literally just a pile of metal. It's shaped like a mountain.
It's not true. There's an orc inside.
There's an orc inside, and it's a Titan, and it doesn't need an explanation on how it works. They have no idea what powers it. They have no idea how they reload the guns. They don't know that, like, it just works. And then you have, on top of that, the orcs specialize in what they call lootas. Now, lootas are just battlefield thieves. They run around the battlefield and steal shit, and then they copy it. And so, yeah. Now let's get on to, that's their basic war engine, right? Is they have the same as everybody else. They get big Titans, they get robots, they get jets and flyers, they get everything just like everybody else. But how do they get around? This is one of my favorite pieces of orc lore. Oh no, I'm gonna go interstellar here. How do they get from planet to planet?
Rock.
We're gonna talk about the rock. So an orc rock is a orc spaceship. It is an interstellar spacecraft that allows the orcs to travel from place to place. The orcs know that other people's spaceships can go where they need to go. And so their spaceship does the same. And their spaceship is literally just a rock. Its name is what it is. It's an
not
asteroid.
Always just a rock.
But sometimes it's a space hulk. But
yeah, they can fly a rock.
They'll take an asteroid or a piece of space debris, they'll put an engine on the back, and it will turn on and travel through the warp and take them where they need to be.
Also, if you get a war boss strong enough to have his own like space station style, like Hulk, it will take on his features. So they'll be flying a moon that looks like their war boss.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Like I said, they're the coolest. Best part. They're so dope.
They need to get out of it when they get to where they're going, right? And they don't have a whole lot of like ferry up and down kind of stuff. And so in order to get out of their spaceship, they will just crash it into the planet. The entire rock just slams into the planet and outspills a whole bunch of orcs. And so them arriving is a cataclysmic event, generally apocalyptic on scale.
At times, so we got to get into our two favorites. Without James being in here, I will introduce I guess, first and second, since we just picked two of the most famous of orc war bosses outside of the Beast.
Yeah, not including the Beast.
We're going to have to talk about Tuska Daemon Killer.
Tuska Daemon Killer.
Whose flagship was called Kill Cruiser. Of course, spelled with K's on all of that. Lots of K's, lots of Z's, lots of O's.
Yeah.
And so he, and his flagship, as it entered the warp, was invaded by demons. And that's how he got his name as Demon Killer. When he went to the, basically, warp rift in his ship and killed the demon that was releasing other little demons into his ship, he shouted into the warp, "Next time, send something bigger."
Jesus.
And when you shout into
Yep.
the warp,
It listens.
someone's listening. So he popped out of the warp after their travel, very near the Eye of Terror. He then fought his way past Cadia, because you have to get past Cadia.
Gotta
to
get past
to the
Cadia.
warp. Yeah,
Yep.
or to get to the Eye of Terror. Broke through an ancient Eldari border post so he could find more daemons, because when he shouted into the warp, it answered back. It told him where to find him. So Tuska flew into the Eye of Terror, conquered several planets. Some belonged to Tzeentch, some to Nurgle, some to Slaanesh.
Including a crone world that was eaten from the Eldar. Like, yeah, it's a whole thing.
Yeah, like Craft Worlds. Tuska was on a Wog, and he was finding good fights. So of course his Wog was getting bigger because they were creating more orcs, which made him more powerful, which made him bigger. Eventually he comes across a demon prince of Khorne, and they have a good fight. So good, in fact, that they wipe each other out to a man. Like, full-blown, everybody knocks out everybody else. Like, this is straight up as close to a zero sum as you can get in a 40k battle. And this pleased someone. It pleased someone so greatly that he reincarnated everyone on the planet. Because, of course, who feeds off of war but Khorne?
Khorne cares not from where the blood flows.
Yeah. And so he raises everybody back up. They fight again in this big, long, drawn-out battle. Of course, all of these orcs are just getting huge at this point because they're just getting revived, but they've had a good fight.
Yep.
You know? Again, Khorne is just so excited to watch all of this happen. So he brings them to the Brass Citadel. It's the Brass Citadel is what it's called, I think.
That's right. It sounds right.
Anyway, brings all of these orcs into the warp itself, and they get to fight every single day.
Jesus.
Over and over and over again for the
Orc
joy
heaven.
and sport of Khorne. Yeah.
Yep.
This is orc heaven. Like, they've made it to Valhalla. They wake up every morning at the dawn. They fight demons to their little heart's content. Everyone dies. The next day, boom, right back. So Tuska is in an endless cycle of just being the happiest orc ever.
But if he ever got free, he'd be pretty badass.
He's not going to get
He would
free.
be apocalyptic. Like,
Well, the thing is he doesn't have as big a wog as some of these other ones. You also have to understand his size is also based on how many people he has with him. So while he has a significant wog, he is not even remotely close to the type of power that was wielded by, like, the Beast and our other soon-to-be-mentioned orc. He is, however, probably the happiest orc that's ever existed.
oh yeah,
Like, he's made it to their version of heaven.
he won effectively, right?
Yeah,
like
he
he got
beat the
exactly
game.
what he wanted.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, he's just out there doing side quests now.
I want to talk about my favorite orc, and we'll trade. So I'm not going to take the big guy himself. I'll let you talk about the big guy. I had two, and Tuska is an awesome story, but I had two I
Love
definitely wanted to
Tuska.
bring up. I want to bring up Grizzguts. So Grizzguts was an orc warlord that invaded the Morlock system. Now, the warp's weird. I think we all know that about 40k, and the warp gets to do whatever it wants to do. And this sometimes comes into competition with the orc Gestalt mind. Other times it lines up just perfect. So Grizzguts is an orc that got a Wa together and invaded the Morlock system, but when he came out of the warp, he realized that he came out of the warp before he actually left. And full-on time travel. Now, he got excited about this and decided that he would go attack himself in order to get a second copy of his favorite gun.
It's because it was his favorite.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense.
Now, for all of us that have to live in this particular time period, what happens when two orcs go into competition is generally it's a good scrap. The ones that win get bigger, and whichever the war bosses kills the other war boss, they get to absorb the remainder of the Wa. And so Grizzguts, yeah, Grizzguts went in to try to get a second copy of his favorite gun, because why not have two guns? Using time travel, and it would have instantly doubled the size of his Wa, and he now knows how to do this because orc Gestalt mind. And so he'll just get as many copies of his favorite gun as he can and continuously duplicate the size of his Wa in the same run over and over and over again because he can't lose. No matter which side wins, Grizzguts wins. And so that's probably one of my favorite orc stories is Grizzguts, the time traveler.
It did run into a problem though.
It did.
And the fact that Grizzguts is the war boss, right? When the war boss dies, the Wog dissipates. So not only is Grizzguts in this endless cycle of coming back to get a better copy of his gun, he now travels back in time to kill himself before killing himself, which constantly dissipates his Wog.
Yeah, just dissipates the Wog. Because both sides just see Grizzguts die.
Which is the war boss, which dissipates the Wog.
And so,
but he does have a second copy of his favorite gun. So
yeah, and that's one of my favorite stories. Here's this again, cosmic reality twisting power, right? Going into the warp, fighting demons, time travel, and the orcs do it because they want a second copy of their favorite gun.
Dude, but so far they do seem like the hero, though. They're battling demons.
If one is good,
they're killing
two is
themselves.
Better.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not really seeing a whole lot of...
They're also killing humans and Eldar.
Yeah. So here's what I'll do. I'm going to very briefly, looking at our time here, I'm going to bring up my second one, and then we're going to close with what I'm sure is Travis's favorite orc, the big guy himself, and that'll be our big one. My second favorite orc is going to be Badruk. So Badruk is the orc war boss of the Freebooters faction in the orcs, which is amazing because they're just pirates. And when I say they're space pirates, I don't mean they fly a spaceship. I mean they have a pirate ship in space. Yeah.
Like sails and everything.
It's called the Black Tooth. And so here's...
Because their economy is based on teeth, in case you guys were curious. That's why I keep saying teeth.
Roaming Crow, you asked, are they made out of tusks? Yes. The answer to that question is yes. Orc currency, their money, is teeth, because orc teeth continuously fall out and regrow, kind of like a shark's. And so they use their leftover teeth as money. That also means that if you need an influx of extra money, you can just punch your buddy in the face and collect his teeth, and you have more money.
Except for Humy teeth. Humy teeth aren't worth very much.
They're not worth very much. Yeah. So the Freebooters are a group of orcs that followed Captain Badruk, who used to belong to the Bad Moons clan, but got too rich and had too many teeth, and so they ran him off. Said he was messing everything up. And everybody that went with him kind of became what they call a flash git. Now, a flash git is somebody who not just wants the biggest, bestest guns, they want the fanciest of stuff. These are the guys that use the gold-plated deagles, to use an example that many are familiar with. The golden gun, gold-plated weapons, that's what a flash git is. Now, freebooters make their life looking for the shiniest, fanciest stuff. And so they fly around and just steal a whole bunch of stuff, as a pirate cruise wants to do. They also act like mercenaries, and Badruk has served many war bosses in several wars as mercenary services so that they can get the shiniest from the pile of the loot.
And also most of the teeth.
And also most of the teeth. So if any of you out there are now interested in the orcs and are trying to think, man, I wonder what kind of orc I should play, and you really like pirates, there's a way to do that. Badruk and the Freebooters.
So here's the thing: when you build, I'm going back to the game for just a minute.
Yeah.
When you build an orc army, are you able to put a bunch of different shit together? Because I know when you look at Space Marines, you have to same chapter. That's it. You can't deviate. You just same chapter. So with orcs, can you mix and match since they're such a weird fucking setup?
It depends.
You still have your unit rules, right? You'll have your jump boys. You'll have your orc boys, which are just your standard foot soldiers. You'll have your mech dreads and killicans and stuff like that, which are your dreadnoughts and mid-size mechs. Your Waz bombers, which is your flyers and stuff. They all follow strict rules that are set up inside your codex. But as far as what you want the lore and flavor to be of your orcs, whatever.
It doesn't matter.
You have the freebooters, you have.
So the way the current game works is instead of selecting an army like you traditionally would, there are certain exceptions, right? But what you're doing is you are selecting an overarching faction. So to use your Space Marine example, you would select Space Marines or Adeptus Astartes. You would then select a detachment to field.
Yep.
In that detachment, no. Salamanders are your chapter.
Yep.
Your detachment, the most salamander detachment, I believe it's called a firestorm something or other, and it has rules that benefit salamander units or salamander style units. Now, there are certain exceptions. There is a Black Templar detachment that you need to be Black Templar to do. But ultimately, there are no special rules attached to chapters beyond special units selected by that chapter any longer.
Right. Yeah, I get that.
Now, the orcs are the same way. Used to, you had to pick an orc like clan. You were the speed demons,
Speed freak. I thought it was
speed freaks. Yeah, the speed freaks, the snake bites, the freebooters, that kind of stuff. That work just like a Space Marine chapter.
Okay.
There are plenty of lore instances where several orc clans come together into a single WA, and you can field bikes from the speed freaks and flash gets from the freebooters. You can absolutely do that.
Waz bombers from the Black Suns, or whatever.
Yeah,
Not Black
the
Suns.
Bad Moons.
Bad Moons. Yeah.
The Bad Moons.
But-
So yes, that is representative.
We need to get into my favorite orc of
And
all
probably
time.
a lot of people's favorite orc.
I love this dude. His history from all the way to where he is now. I am talking, of course, of Ghazghkull Mag Uruk Thraka.
Thraka!
What a fucking name.
Yeah,
This
dude,
is the
he's
coolest
got a
orc
good
ever.
name
Like-
because he's the bestest orc.
I
Oh,
mean,
man.
So
with a name
Ghazghkull
like that.
is currently the prophet of Morkengork.
Uh-huh.
He speaks with the gods. They talk to him directly.
Okay.
So what it all started was he was spawned on a world called Urkolis, or as the orcs called it, Urk.
Yep.
U-R-K, Urk. The Imperium of Man had figured out that the best way to keep orcs under control is to just periodically do a cleansing, so they set up some automated defense systems and some scouting stations to keep an eye on these orcs. He belonged to a clan on this planet that fought over scraps and stuff like that. They assaulted one of these outposts. He took a bolter round to the dome, lost 30% of his head, and survived, because you don't need all of it.
Especially if you're an orc, from what I'm gathering.
Yeah, and
It depends on what those around you believe.
his
Oh.
buddies knew that there was a pain boy, which is their equivalent of a doctor? Question mark.
Sure, it's a
Why not?
Sawbones. They do medicine
Yeah.
and stuff. Like
Medicine that was paying for badly damaged but living orcs. So they basically bundle him up, get him down the hill. They take him to Gritsnock, the doctor, which also dope name,
Yeah, I'm like, I'm
for-
really liking this.
for 3 teeth and a sheet of metal. Gritsnock works on him all night, replaces his skull with adamantium, gives him a mechanical eye that sort of works, and then zaps him with warp electricity for 3 days.
full
He died.
Frankenstein.
I mean, yeah.
Ghazghkull Mag Uruk Thraka died.
He died.
So he threw him out on the pile. What's his name? I'm trying to think of is it Mari? Mockley? Hardly matters.
Yeah.
Smaller orc is digging through the pile of wasted bits to see if he can find anything, perhaps some teeth. But anyway, comes across Ghazghkull, goes to harvest him. Ghazghkull pops awake, nearly chokes this dude to death, and receives a vision of the gods of a green wave of fire that takes over the entire galaxy. And Ghazghkull Mag Uruk Thraka gains something that no other orc in history has had. And that's a vision for the future.
Yep.
He has a plan. And so he lifts himself up out of this pile of dead and desiccated corpses, goes to the war boss of the local clan. Was it the Rippas?
Yeah, Deskulls,
Was it the Deskulls?
something like that. Anyway, another orc clan.
This dude shoots at him with his bolter cannon. Ghazghkull is untouched, who then pummels this orc to death with his hands, stands up and says, "All of you will follow me. And if you question me, you can fight me now or you can fight me in a group." So for 3 days, he battles everybody in this clan, of course getting bigger, and he beats them all with his bare hands. Doesn't pick up a weapon.
That's not bad. It's pretty good.
That's super good considering they were shooting at him with guns.
Yeah.
And their mistake was that they brought a gun to a fist fight.
So
Because
Bruce Lee.
Ghazghkull, Mag, Uruk, Thraka beat all of them.
More like the Hulk.
Yeah. Unites everybody, every orc on this planet, which has been at war with each other for centuries.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he has a problem.
No way
He's
off
gotta-
the planet.
He's got to build ships. Orcs don't have great attention spans because there's no ships on them for them to co-opt and just orcify and then fly off. They're having to build these from scratch. And it's going to take them 10 days,
Get the fuck
which is an
out.
unreasonable amount of time for an orc to do anything besides fight.
Yeah.
So he tells them that if they can stay focused and build these ships because he can stand stock still for 10 days, and he does it. So they get ships to go into space, and of course they're not faster than light because they haven't seen warp travel yet. And so they're slowly going from world to world in this system, fighting, conquering, creating other orcs, starting a WOG. When a miracle happens, and a Space Hulk pops out right in front of him because he's blessed by Mork and Gork.
Space Hulk.
Boards the Space Hulk. It's basically a mishmash of
Space Hulk's a
rock
whole bunch of
and
stuff
ships
from the warp.
that just collided and
Yeah.
fused together. And most of the time they have a warp core somewhere in there, but obviously no Geller field because that would prevent
who
them
need-
from
who needs
becoming
one
a
of
Space
those?
Hulk.
Yeah.
Well, the orcs don't need it because they don't. I don't think they have souls, and they're pretty much immune to
Well, and if the
warp
demons
influence.
jump into the ship, even better. Like,
like it's a fight on. You get to fight and
Fight
travel.
on the
That's
way.
great.
yeah.
We learned that from Tuska. It's a good fight. Doesn't have to be a long fight, just has to be a good fight, and every fight's a good fight.
Jesus.
So yeah, miraculously the Space Hulk arrives. He co-ops it, takes it over, fights Tyranid and demons and whatever else is on there, and off he goes into the galaxy. He is responsible for both these, for the second and third war for Armageddon.
Yeah. So Armageddon. I want to talk about Armageddon because not only
The
is Ghazghkull
unluckiest
Thraka,
planet in the galaxy.
yeah, not only is he a dominant feature, but he also comes into play with one of the coolest characters from the Imperial Guard in the form of Commissar Yarrick.
R.I.P.
Um, Yeah, I mean, assuming he's dead because the orcs don't think he's killable. So, Armageddon.
His head's around
yeah,
Angron's neck, so it's kind of one of those things.
yeah, but I mean, don't underestimate the orcs, right? So Ghazghkull Thraka ends up on Armageddon, and something you need to understand about Armageddon, the second and third war of Armageddon. This is the unluckiest planet of all time. This makes the Lamenters from the Space Marine chapters look like lottery winners. This planet has seen civil uprisings, wars, Tyranid incursions, just everything bad that can happen to a planet happens to
A
Armageddon.
Necron awakening.
Yeah, a Necron tomb awakening. So anyway, Ghazghkull ends up there, starts the second and third war on Armageddon, and it's this. Now the planet is solely known for the fact that it's an orc fight because so many orcs know you can go to Armageddon for a good fight, and so it's constantly being invaded by orcs. And Commissar Yarrick is an amazing character that got to use the orcs' power kind of against them, right? So Commissar Yarrick ends up fighting Ghazghkull Thraka, runs him off effectively. But in the meantime, Commissar Yarrick loses his right eye and his right arm. Left eye and right arm? Loses an eye and an arm. In a desperate attempt to not bleed to death, he takes the arm of Ghazghkull Thraka that he cut off and jams it onto his stump.
With his killer claw.
And it's got a scything, just crab pincer called a Killiclaw that just starts working. And he's like, great, I'm not bleeding to death. Well, he goes in, he gets a cybernetic eye put in to replace the one he lost. Well, the orcs start telling stories because of the red glow of his
That it
cybernetic
shoots
eye
lasers.
that it shoots lasers. And so many orcs believe that the next time Commissar Yarrick is in battle, his eye starts shooting lasers. And he has no idea what's going on, but leans into it.
Here's the thing: is so many orcs believe it, even when he's not fighting orcs, it still shoots lasers.
And so now his eye can just shoot lasers. Nobody in the Imperium understands why, but it can.
The orcs don't even understand why, but it sure
Yeah.
does.
So anyway, continue with Ghazghkull Thraka after
Yeah,
the
so-
third war of Armageddon.
He's second war he's beaten by Yarrick. The third war he fights him to a stalemate, but that was always the intention because Ghazghkull is doing something that other orcs can't do,
Yep.
and that's be tactical. His goal was to keep the Imperium of Man occupied at Armageddon while he united even more orcs. because he's found out that you can just survey planets and discover whether or not there's spores there. And so he's going to these planets that have orcs or the potentiality for orcs to awaken and crashing into them, getting more orcs and getting back into space.
Yep.
To the point where it's now questionable as to who has the greater WoG following between Ghazghkull or the Beast.
Yeah. I honestly, I'm giving the edge to Ghazghkull in this one.
Oh,
But you're talking
100%.
about an orc that has fought everybody. Demons, Tyranid, Eldar. He's fought the Black Templar on Armageddon. Again, Armageddon's just the unluckiest place.
Unluckiest planet.
So you
you're
don't
talking
want to
about-
be born there.
No.
Yeah.
But the Battle of the Haunted Gulf,
Honestly,
the
you
Battle
don't want
of
to be a
Krongar.
human anywhere in the 40K.
Yeah.
It's just not great for you.
Here's the thing. Armageddon has been so despoiled that the atmosphere is thin and poisonous. The soil is scorched and cannot grow anything anymore. Like, you're talking about a ball of rock that,
People just fight
Is-
on.
yeah, people just fight on because the orcs think that's a place for a good fight.
Ooh, like
Um,
Warworld.
It's very much like Battleworld, yes.
Yes, that's it.
So yeah, he's
Sweet.
rallying all the weird boys to him. He's rallying planet after planet of orcs, and I honestly think that by the time the Battle of Krongar happens during Psychic Awakening, I bet you he's got the Beast beat. Easy.
I agree. So we're going to go past the Third War of Armageddon to a planet called Kronar, which is where his next big event happens, and he goes one-on-one. What's up?
Did he get his arm back? Like, do orcs grow their shit back?
All right, so
No, he
kind
has
of.
a mechanical arm. It's
They
bigger.
can grow their shit back. They can, if enough orcs believe it.
Yeah.
But frequently, they'll simply just replace it because it takes too long to grow a new one back with bits of machinery that work as cybernetics now. Because he saw the humans do it, so why not the orcs? By the time he reaches the planet Travis is about to talk about, Ghazghkull Thraka is predominantly a dreadnought. Like, he's gigantic.
Not yet. He's about the size of a Terminator.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's true. But
Big
he's got
mechanical arm. He's got, of course, the adamantite
skull,
skull.
Um,
He has dipped his fangs in metal.
and he wears he's not replaced, but attached to his collarbone, a gorget of like fangs and stuff.
So he gets to Kronar. He goes one-on-one with probably one of the most battle-adept Space Wolves ever, and that is, of course, Ragnar Blackmane.
Yeah.
They fight. Ragnar Blackmane is crushed inside his ceramite armor, just to tell you how strong Ghazghkull Thraka is at this point. He's doing this with one mechanical arm with a killer claw on the end and his other hand, and is literally crushing battle plate in his hands. Imagine giving someone in full plate armor a hug so bad that it collapses on them. Like, that is essentially what he's doing. In an act of desperation, Ragnar Blackmane chops off Ghazghkull Thraka's head, holds it in the air, gives his victory howl. They both pass out. Again, Ghazghkull can't be brought down by Ragnar Blackmane, so again, Grotznik, ever the handy medic, reattaches Ghazghkull's head to his body and decides, time for some upgrades. The flesh is weak.
Yeah.
Let's make him bigger. So now he just replaces a whole bunch of parts with mechanical stuff. Again, recharges them with warp lightning, because that's what you got to get power
That's
from
what they
somewhere.
do. Yeah.
So now he's roughly the size of a dreadnought. Here's the thing. His growth does not stop because he's been encased in metal. He wins a fight, he gets
Yeah.
bigger.
So does the metal.
Because he won the fight.
Yep.
Bigger, stronger. So now, inadvertently, the Space Wolves have created the largest, most powerful, most unkillable orc in the 40K universe. Because decapitation, he has survived decapitation, which means that cutting his head off doesn't kill him anymore. Because his WoG believes that even with his head gone, he still lives.
Yeah. No, he'll just get another one. It's fine.
It's fine. Ghazghkull has become unkillable. And that's where kind of the story runs into. There's a handful of things that happen afterwards, all small stuff. Basically him just assembling more orcs.
Yeah. Makari, the grot that originally found him when he became a prophet,
Makari,
dies.
Thank you. No, he kills Makari, but he constantly resurrects him, and now Makari is
Yeah.
so mad at him that he kills himself every time he gets resurrected. It's very frustrating for Ghazghkull.
The fuck?
Yeah.
So yeah. So effectively, he's what's called a mega knob. and it's orcs that wear power armor. It's not real power armor. It's just metal that's bolted onto them, but it serves the same purpose.
Which, by the way, it's bolted directly onto them. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not like armor that's like bolted together. It's riveted
No,
into
it's
an
riveted
orc.
into him.
I mean, if they don't
and-
believe in pain, they wouldn't have pain, I guess.
Yeah, he's
Weird.
known for his power claw called Gork's Claw, and he's got a 4-barreled. It's like a gun from a spaceship, right? It's like an
Yeah,
AA gun or something.
No, it's a.
It's
it's
a
from-
4-barreled cannon called Mork's Roar.
Yeah, and it's from not a dropship, the Thunderhawk.
Is it Thunderhawk? Okay.
Yeah. It's essentially a Thunderhawk cannon.
So is he still alive in the universe then?
Absolutely.
Gazgul? Oh yeah.
Absolutely. In
which
fact,
this
the
is the
Psychic
perfect-
Awakening. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say this is the perfect segue to get into our fan theories because we're already running a little long. And I'm gonna go with my favorite fan theory is that Gazgul Mag Uruk Thraka is about to become the first Krork in Millennium.
He's already got the size.
He also
And,
has a
yeah.
vision.
So yeah, not only is he still alive, he is still a dominant player in the universe. He was just involved with the Psychic Awakening, which was the last major story arc in 40K up to the point where we get to the one we're in now. And yeah, he's a huge problem. He's an unkillable titan of fury that is speaking directly to gods that now exist solely because the orcs think they're real. And both Gork and Mork have enough power to rival any of the other chaos gods. So yeah, they're just a giant problem.
Nobody rivals the Emperor.
Okay, so here's my favorite fan theory. Hurrah! As we all know, the God Emperor of Mankind was a perpetual that was ultimately killed in the Horus Heresy. Until they put him on the life support system of the Astronomicon and the Golden Throne. My favorite theory is that the Emperor is dead and would be dead, aside from the fact that the orcs don't think he's killable. And so there he sits on his chair, immortal, because the orcs won't let him die.
I like
because the orc Gestalt mind just does that.
Be that way.
It be that way.
My only thing, like, I agree, like I agree with you with the Emperor thing. That was going to be like we share the same one. But the one thing I was going to ask about that and countering it just a little bit is if it's not like predominantly on their mind, does it still work? Because they're probably not consistently thinking of the Emperor.
Yeah. So
They just
here's
have-
what I'm going to tell you. The orcs, that's not the way it works. You're trying to find quantifiable stuff in the orc Gestalt mind. All they have to do is believe it enough that reality changes, and then that is reality. That's the way the physics work now.
Okay. So Scarlet
Um,
Witch.
Yeah, but without
Okay.
the whole ability to shut it down.
I mean, she didn't for a long time. Anyways,
Well,
that's
they
another
can't
thing.
unbelieve something when they believe it.
Yeah. Even if they forget about it, even if they're not actively thinking about it. Additionally, don't think about it like a power that they can turn on and off. They can't help it. It has to be sincere. It has to be honest.
Yeah,
and
they
it can
don't
work in
know
both
what's
directions.
happening.
Yeah.
The perfect
Like-
so the perfect example of it happening in both directions. Second War for Armageddon, a group of orcs is in a locked and heated battle with a group of Imperial Guard. The Imperial Guard is out of ammo, so as a delay tactic, they still pop up out of their trench and go bang, pull the trigger on their guns,
Just like that.
Creates-
Vocalize the word
Yeah.
bang.
creates the little flash. Because it's out of power, it's not going to shoot a las, but it still lights up a little bit. The orcs, believing that they're being shot at, die.
And not just die, but get wounded.
So the stalemate continues. They have no ammo, but because the Imperial Guard are acting so convincingly that they're still shooting at these orcs, they're believing they're still being shot.
Yep.
And so they're falling over dead. Like,
So the Imperial Guard realized this?
So the orcs are not
Sort
aware
of.
of the Gestalt mind.
yeah.
They don't know this.
No, yeah, I got that. But like, do any of
The
the
Imperial
Astartes?
Guard- So
No.
there are evidence of mankind understanding the Gestalt mind on a certain level in certain books. But bear in mind, evidence of using it against them usually is a desperate moment. The one Travis is talking about, they weren't actually trying to kill the orcs. They were trying to get the orcs to believe they were under fire, to suppress them and buy more time.
Yeah.
It just worked really, really well.
Because the orcs, because they had been in a stalemate for so long and they had been shot so many times, they believed when they popped up out of the trench, the guns were going to work. And they did. And so they died.
Yeah.
This was countered because enough orcs got together. They said, hey, if I'm wearing armor, you're wearing armor, that's two armors. if enough of us are standing close together, we're just like a tank.
Yep.
And so they formed a phalanx, and were getting shot by imaginary las fire, but it wasn't hurting them
Because they were a
because
tank.
they were close together, and that makes them like a tank. So that's how it
Yeah.
works. It's like it goes both directions, but it doesn't make any sense, and they have no control over it because they're one of those people that's like 2 + 2 potato, and they're like, obviously it's potato, and then everybody gets together,
Yeah.
and now it's potato.
It does take a certain like critical level of orcs. Like you can't have 5 or 6 orcs believe a thing and then it'll just change.
Yeah.
It might change in a relative proximity, but not on the grand scale, not a reality shift, right? If you get enough orcs, that's when reality shifts.
Yeah. Like blue being a lucky color.
Yeah.
Which is why orcs do not ever actively engage the Ultramarines unless they
Ultramarines.
have to, because the Ultramarines are way luckier than they are. All of their armor is blue.
You're talking, this actually is part of their culture. When you look at the Speed Freaks, right? The Speed Freaks are basically Mad Max Fury Road. They drive around in the desert going as fast as possible.
Yeah.
And everybody's hanging off the buildings and shooting guns and strapped to the front of the vehicles. But they also have gladiatorial races. And part of that is the orcs that are driving, putting on a really good show because they learned that if enough orcs are cheering for them, they go faster or they'll win.
Yeah.
And so it turns into this big gladiator thing where it's not just a contest of racing. It's not skill or your machine.
It's
or
also
anything.
showmanship.
It's showmanship because you got to have the crowd on your side to make you go faster.
Fucking A. Anyways,
So, and like I said, it's really wild how all of that works for orcs. So yeah, that was honestly one of my favorite things that ever came up was all the IG going, okay, if we pretend to shoot at him, maybe it'll slow him down. So they pretended to shoot, and then orcs died. So they were like, just keep doing it.
So to wrap it all up, guys, that's what we're dealing with when we talk about orcs in 40K. You may be familiar with orcs from Lord of the Rings or from fantasy versions.
These
The
are
orcs in
not
40K
them.
are not them. They are a cosmic, eldritch, galaxy-changing fungal infection that is spread across the entire galaxy and will kill you because it's fun.
And they're the best hope for stopping the Tyranid.
Yes, they are. There are very few success stories about stopping the orcs. Yeah, there's some good ones about fighting them off planets, but their spores always remain. In fact, there's only a handful of species that have ever successfully eradicated an orc infestation, and that is the Eldar and the Kroot, dominantly.
Salamanders are also very highly effective against them because they use so much fire.
Fire. Spores are still spores and will still burn. Until the orcs don't believe that they are weak to fire anymore.
Yeah, unless there's enough orcs to say, hey, I can survive fire.
Yeah, fuck
but again,
you, fire.
That's gonna be a tough one when you're seeing the guy next to believe that when you see the guy next to you burn, right? Like
alive.
All right, guys.
If I'm watching Todd charge the salamanders and he bursts into flames and then dies, it's gonna be hard for me to go, I'm immune to fire.
All right, so I'm going to throw out the last thing for orcs, and that is going to be they have much better names than the Space Marines.
That is a fact.
Way better than Roberto Guilliman or whatever, and fucking Vulcan, the goddamn knockoff from Star Trek, probably, and whatever else there is out there.
It's the Greek god?
Yeah, it's after the Greek god, just for your information.
Are we sure it's not after the race
I'm
of
positive.
aliens?
Here's
I'm 100%
the thing.
positive.
Star Trek.
There is infinite debate about pronunciation of names, right? Here is the end all to every debate. Everybody can talk about historical relevance or Greek or Roman gods or, Russian influence or whatever. This game was written by British guys, and the names are pronounced the way the British guys pronounce them. And it's their universe, so they get to make the rules. And that's why it's, I don't remember. So Guilliman is not Guilliman. It is not Yagati Khan, Yagati Khan. It's Jakati Khan because they're British.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Rebout Guilliman. I'm going to say very American right there. Rebout Guilliman.
It's Rebute.
Yeah, there's a correct pronunciation that they'll have. They're not coming out on Twitter
Jagatai Khan.
They're not coming out on Twitter to correct anybody, and I think that's deliberate because 40K in and of itself is contradictory and it has an unreliable narrator.
However, the names of the units for orcs is still just
so much
best.
You know exactly what they do.
Names. Yeah.
Dare to stabbers, data shooters.
Good. I like it.
All right. For those of you that enjoyed what you listened to about the 40k orcs and our upcoming games that we covered, I'm going to encourage you all to do the fun algorithm stuff. Give us a like, give us a comment, give us a share, leave us on mute in the background. Doesn't really matter. Share us with your friends. And if you like what you heard, most importantly, give us a comment. Let us know what you think. What do you think about the orcs? What do you think about name pronunciations? What do you think is the most interesting thing in the 40k universe? And most importantly, what do you want to hear about next? So do all the fun algorithm stuff.
Yeah, we're really looking for new topics and things like that. Real quick. Thanks again. Survive. That was fun. Check them out.
Absolutely.
We're already looking at another project. Ryan's got the stuff for it. This will be a TTRPG. So we'll see how that goes. Shout out to Too Legit to Crit. We did work with them.
Yeah.
My audio is fucked up, so I apologize if I made it bad for anybody listening to it. I did
With your
share.
terrible hotel Wi-Fi.
I know. I'm not. Every
that
time
was
I go
bad,
to the
man.
States, man, you guys. That's when we plan this. I never know how this goes. Anyways, check it out. He did it. I think he's got it in 2. It's saved on our YouTube channel. It's on theirs. I've shared it on our Instagram and on our Facebook. So check it out. Crit in the Nerdverse, Rebel Claws, new characters, pretty fun time.
And you'll get to see our new hosts, Jimmy Bones, created a character and joined Rebel Claws in their escapades. So if you want to check out his new character and see what he's capable of, be sure and check out that episode.
He's cooler than Clark's character.
Clark's going to fight you.
Yeah. But with that, we're going to bring this episode to a close. We are crossing the Nerdverse. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next time.
See you, boys.
Bye.
Bye.